WWE royalty, ladies and gentlemen, The Undertaker, and the biggest wrestling fan on planet Earth. Like I was saying before the podcast, if I did not bring Tony Hinchcliffe on this podcast, I would have never heard the end of it. No one loves you more than that man. Like being right next to you right now, he's probably tingling. He's tingling a little bit. He might be lactating. This is the highlight of my life. That's cool. I don't know if I'm happy or sad about that, really. But hey, man, thanks for coming on here. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, it's an honor, really. Oh, my pleasure. Honored to have you. So, what is it like being in Austin, Texas right now? Are you enjoying it? You're from this area, right? Yeah, well, I'm from Houston, but I've been here since about '04. It's crazy, man. We got this influx of people from California right now. We're trying not to mess it up. What should we do? Tell us what to do. It's fine. Bring the money, leave the values, and we'll all be good. What values do we need to leave behind specifically? Well, everything that messed up California. Yeah, I think that's the government, man. No, but really, the government gets voted in, though, right? Yeah, but I don't think we expected them to do that exactly. Yeah, no one expected him to shut down all the restaurants and shut down all the gyms. And now that studies have come out, there was a new study that came out. It was in Newsweek. I'm hoping that when things change, they're gonna go, well, we realize that lockdowns are not really good. It doesn't really help. Give people freedom and let them do it. I'm hoping that this is a political thing, which is a terrible thing to hope for. That's where we're at, though. Yeah, but that's where we're at. I'm hoping that it was all political and that they'll adjust. Once again, I hope so, too. It's been nuts, man. It's crazy. It's just, what do you believe, too? Right? Exactly. You hear this, you hear that. Like, my buddy Brendan Schaub just went down to the comedy store the other day, rode his bike down there, said, dude, it's like The Walking Dead. He said Sunset is just a zombie land. Yeah, it's crazy. Tents and weirdos and no businesses open and everything's just. It's amazing how quick things can fall apart. Quick, like that. Yeah, like that. Everything changes. And the Sunset Strip is extra sad because, like, all the neon lights and everything is what kept it. When those things are shut off, it's as dark as it gets. Like, even the comedy store, it's just a black building with a bunch of red and white neons around it. But if those neons are off, it just looks like nothing's there. You gotta wonder what's gonna happen when everything comes back. Like, how long is it gonna take for things to bounce back? It could take 5 years. Yeah, it could. That, or just everybody lose their freaking mind and, just go absolutely ape because they've been cooped up for so long. Yeah, we can do what we're good at. Let's party. Let's go. So, what have you been doing, man? What have you been doing with your life post wrestling? Yeah, so trying to figure out what's next, really. I've done this for 33 years altogether. 30 years in WWE. Crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those deals. Like, you're walking around like you're okay, though. Like, a lot of the guys that hit 30 years, man, Like, I hung out with the Iron Sheik one night. Oh, that poor guy. Yeah, he's very entertaining. Hilarious. He's great. Hilarious. I love Shaky. But you're right, he can. His ankle's fused. He can't walk. And I've already got both my hips. Birmingham resurfaced job. So, my hips are metal. This is incredible that they can do that now. Well, it added 10 years to my career. Oh, so you did it and then kept going? So I did the first one. I did the left one in 2010. Wow. I mean, it looked like, they filmed the whole thing for me. And, my hip joint, the ball socket, looked like a landmine had gone off on it. I mean, it was just potholes. And I had spurs and cartilage arthritis. It was filled up. And they'd only been doing them for about 10 years at that point. So they didn't have a whole lot of, scientific study on how long these were going to last. And then no one was going to put it to the test like I did, right? Especially with the amount of weight you're carrying around and then picking people up and slamming them and getting slammed and just all that jarring. So, doctor. Sue, out of the hospital for special surgeries, he was just phenomenal. And he was so gung ho because, like, that was his baby. And, he knew what I was gonna do. And he's like, no one's put that kind of test on it. We're going to see. And I was like, yeah, we're going to see. And it's held up. I've been. I was in pain easily 12 years. Every step of every day, was just that searing down the leg pain. And you just dealt with it. It's part of the game. And I just think, thankfully, I've got a high threshold for pain. But, people that are in chronic pain all the time, you live with it. You don't even realize the drag it is on you. I mean, you get used to it, but you don't know how much until it's gone. And when I woke up from surgery and I'm pain-free, it was like a whole new lease on life. Remotivated me to do things right away. You were pain-free as soon as you woke up? Wow. How's that? Don't they have to saw the top of your... No. So, here's what they do. I wish I'd have brought it with me, but we're trying to pack our house up and move. So, they take the head of the femur, all right? The top of the leg bone. They go in there first and they clean everything off of it. They get all the arthritis. They shave all that off. They kind of bore it and clean it as good as they can clean it. Then they drill a hole in the head of your femur. And then they take a titanium cap and they stick it over the head of the femur. That's it. That's money right there. So that is what yours looks like? So this thing, yeah. So the thing with the stem on the right side there that goes right into the head of the femur. And then the porous piece of metal that goes over the top of it goes into the acetabulum. And no restrictions. Wow. No restrictions, yeah. I had to walk. I was walking on. The left is the old way to do it, right? So, they still do it on the right-hand side? Yeah, and they still do it that way. And if I screw these up, I can still add the total hip where they'll go in there, cut the femur off. What would be the benefit of doing that, though? Well, at the time, if I had done the full hip replacement, then I would have been finished, right? Yeah, because it just couldn't have taken the trauma that I put it through. Right. But the resurfacing, that way I have absolutely no restrictions. Wow. Yeah. So you have no pain now? How long is this supposed to last? Like, don't they say that you might have to get another one of these or do something with it eventually? Eventually, they don't know. Like I said, when I did the first one, they'd only been doing them for about 10 years. And no one had gotten in a wrestling ring and got thrown around 270 days a year on it. Well, think about cars, right? You can get like a 95 Land Cruiser with 300,000 miles on it easy, and they're driving fine. And those pistons are just going. Maybe it could just keep going. Yeah, no warranty. There's no warranty. But I just keep holding off. And medicine keeps getting better and better. Yeah, no, it'll definitely continue to get better. I mean, it's just incredible that you can do that and then still wrestle. I mean, yeah. And then I did the other one. I did the other one maybe 5 years later. Same thing? Yeah, the same thing. I only think then is I kind of had to learn how to walk again. I mean, I could walk, but my gait was so screwed up because I'd favored one leg, from dragging the leg and everything. So I had to. What they had me do is, weirdly enough, start walking backwards. Huh? Two, on a treadmill to correct my gait. Yeah, because you compensate when you have an injury, right? You start to compensate and do things differently. So I walk differently to kind of alleviate the pain. So once I had no pain, I still had the habits of walking that way. So I had to retrain my brain and my body to walk correctly again. So the left hip was the one that was really bothering you for the longest time, and the right hip was bothering you less. Yeah, I didn't really have. It was kind of weird how it happened. Like, my left hip was bad for years and years. I finally, I said, okay, I'm gonna call it a day. And my normal orthopedic surgeon, he says, I said, okay, doc, I'm gonna call it a day. And he's a mark. He said, you should have called it a day 5 years ago. He said, you got more out of that hip than anybody ever should have. And I was like, well, and so, I'd come to grips with my career was going to be over. And so I cut my hair off. I said, I'm not going to need this long hair anymore. So I cut my hair off. And I'm kind of sitting at home. Phone rings. It's only about 2 or 3 days later, right? And doctor. Buy it, he's out of Nashville. Awesome, awesome doctor. He's probably the leading doctor in hip preservation, like taking your natural hip as far as you can go. Just really good. What does he do for that? He'll go in arthroscopically, clean the bone off, clean the spurs out. He just... Anytime there's, what starts to happen is you start getting the arthritis and then the spurs. And what happens is every time you're walking, it's just showing that up. So he goes in there and he's actually designed his own instruments that he uses to go in there arthroscopically and clean these hip joints out. So he calls me and he goes, hey, I might have another option for you. And I'm like, I already shaved my head. And he goes, there's this doctor in New York that's doing this thing called the Birmingham hip resurface. He says it may give you an opportunity to make a decision that you want to make instead of having it made for you. I was like, oh, okay. So I go to New York and I meet with Dr. Sue, and he goes, yeah, I think you're a perfect candidate. Your bone density is really great, and I think you'll do good with it. I was like, well, let's go for it. I got nothing to lose at that point. And I wake up, I'm pain-free. And I'm like, holy. Like, I'm walking that day. That day? Yeah. This is like, no crutches, no nothing. I started out on crutches because I had an epidural in. So, when I first tried to get up, it was funny. They bring in two male nurses, right? And I'm throwing some change around at the time. And I've never had any kind of side effects, but I guess I got up and I got lightheaded. Did they catch you? They got me. They got me. I landed on the bed. So, the last thing I remember is getting up to go take this walk. And the next thing you know, I'm laying in bed and my wife's looking at me like, you okay? I was like, what? You passed out. I was like, shut up. I didn't pass out. Yeah, they got you up to walk and you passed out. Holy crazy. Yeah, I was so looped up. I'm just so happy that they could do that for you. They could resurface both of them. When you walk, I mean, because you walk, you would never know. Yeah, it is crazy. I feel really blessed. But, now, if I could, obviously I'd still be going full steam ahead, but I just physically can't. I can't perform at the level. And that's the thing with when you use your body for athletic purpose, at some point it's going to say enough's enough. John Wayne Parr, he's a Muay Thai champion out of Australia. John Wayne? Yeah. He has over 100 fights. He was trying to get 100 wins, but they robbed him on his last decision on his 100th win. But he just got his hip redone, and he's throwing kicks again. It's great. Because I thought, like, he was saying he needed to get his hip done. I'm like, well, I guess the career is over if you get a hip replacement. But he got a resurfacing very similar to yours. I don't know if it's the exact same one. But he's like, a couple of weeks later, he was throwing kicks in the air. And a couple months later, this is him like right post-operation. But if you go to his Instagram right now, like, if you can see some video of him, what is that one? Is he running? Yeah, this is crazy. You can run? Yeah, I mean, he was in pain for a long time. That's just nuts to see him being able to do that. There's a video of him throwing kicks. He got a float tank, too. Someone hooked him up with a float tank. Nice. Yeah, there it is right there. I mean, this is only a couple. Oh, this is like a parody of Jean-Claude Van Damme's asterisk kickboxer asterisk. He's being. John's a funny dude. He's always around. But there's videos of him. Get out of this one. It is eventually, but it's gonna take too long. But keep scrolling down. There's a video of him throwing kicks. No, no, like scroll down. Right there. That's it. Exactly. So this is, I think, 3 months post-surgery and he can throw kicks. So he's got someone holding the pads for him, which is just. Yeah, that's insane. And that leg he's throwing right there, that was the one that he had surgery on. Yeah. And there's so much pressure. And John's in his 40s, but he's a savage to the end. Crazy. It's crazy, man. Modern medicine. It's phenomenal, man. It really is. And from the fans' perspective, they don't tell you when these guys are getting surgery and things like that. So, what do you think happened? Well, we don't. What do you mean? No, we don't know when they're getting surgery. So my point is, for example, you're watching The Undertaker, who's already been doing it years longer than all of his peers. And maybe you could tell that matches are different or slower. They are. They're different. Obviously, headlining an hour-long WrestleMania match. Just diss me. I'm not sure. No, you felt that, right? I didn't like it. But the return on that is that people say, oh, this must be it. We're coming towards the end of The Undertaker. Right. He's different than it's always been. And then he would come back from one of these hip surgeries, and it would literally add to the mystique of The Undertaker because all of a sudden he's faster, stronger. Right. Yeah, for a while there, that was the template. I would, at the end of my career, I had to kind of almost like a fighter. When a fighter goes into camp. Because I would get ready for like one event for years. Like, I had an 8-year stretch where I averaged 270 dates a year. That's what a lot of people don't get. The live events town to town, flying everywhere. That is bananas. Yeah, easily. Easily 8 years, 270 dates. And at the beginning of my career in the early 90s with WWE, on the weekends we do 2 shows a day. Yeah, yeah. Oh, my god. So, you know who works harder than pro wrestlers? Like, literally, I would honestly. I mean, obviously I'm biased. But a lot of people really don't get that because they see Monday nights or they see the Friday night show, and they don't know that we're doing live events. And when I came up in the early 90s, we only did TV like every 3 weeks. We would tape 3 weeks of TV, and the rest of that time we're on the road. And it'd be like they were throwing darts. Like, one day I'd be in New York, the next day I'd be in Denver, then I'd be in Miami, then be in Toronto, then I'd be in LA, then I'd be in Dallas. You must have been in a constant state of jet lag. Well, I say messed up, really. Honestly, I mean, we all had a motto, we'll sleep when we're dead. Right. Because I mean, you're young. When you're young, you've got that kind of energy and you can do all that. And you're going out and you're enjoying your nightlife too. Well, no wonder why so many guys have a problem with pills too, because you're in a constant state of pain. Absolutely. Things have progressed in our industry so much. Like, we're on the same standards now of Major League Baseball and the NFL. I mean, our drug testing programs, wellness programs, concussions. I mean, we are, probably in some cases, even better. Why would they test you for drugs? Well, one, prescription drugs. Right? You know, just to see if you got a problem. They started out early on in the 90s. They didn't want people getting popped with, getting pulled over and cops finding weed in the car or whatnot. So that would be a fine. You'd get fined a little bit the first time. The second time, you get fined a little more. The third time, you get fined and maybe have to go to rehab. But I think what they kind of figured out, well, they still do, but they didn't realize when they took that away, what are you going to do? You're going to drink more. And then you're going to take more pills because you got to cope with the pain somehow. And so then you've got guys overdosing. So everything's kind of led up to this drug protocol now. We have trainers, doctors. You know, there's all kinds of protocols. You get your head checked. Used to, it's like, okay, well, fine. You know, I gotta go make a living. Right? It's the same with injuries. Like, you don't work, you don't get paid. So, in that sense, our industry's come a long way. They really take good care of the athletes now. But when you think of drug tests, people think about steroids. Yeah, which is, if I was Vince, I would tell people, look, I want to make sure you're on steroids. I'd be like, testing everybody. Well, we've had a few times. You're not on steroids? Yeah. You're a pro wrestler, come on, bro. You would think, right? And you know, there was a time where everybody had to be back, you had to be jacked. Right. Yeah. And especially the guys, you know, the 6'8", the big guys. There was the stigma, you got to be 300 pounds. It's in our head. Nobody gives a, they're interested in the characters and what you do on TV. But in our heads, like, I gotta be 330 pounds. A little bit, yeah. But if a guy like Brock Lesnar comes out and he looks skinny, people would be furious. Even the guys that weren't huge had to do it to stay medium. You know what I mean? Like, I was friends with Roddy Piper, right? And he was telling me about it. And he's like, well, yeah, I mean, you had to. Even to stay in the middle, to stay in the game, you had to be on steroids. That was the wrestler's mindset, though. Now that we're tested for everything. They test for steroids? For steroids? They have for a while, really? Yeah, which I don't understand because there's some big out there. Yeah, and cut. And I don't know how they did it. I couldn't get that way when I was on steroids. Like, who's the biggest guy in the WWE right now? I'm gonna pull up a picture. Braun Strowman. He passes the sniff test? Yeah, Braun. I think he's about my height. He's 3. He used to be a powerlifter. Let me see here. You go, Jimmy. Oh, Jesus. So yeah, he's 300 and... Come on, son. 30 pounds? Look, we're trying to say that that guy doesn't do it. I'm just telling you. Hey, I'm just telling you. This is what. Before them, they test them, and then they give them a grade. A good job? I'm just saying steroids. Look, I can only. I totally. Before I switched my contracts in, you know, now I'm not a talent. As you know, now I'm a legend, I guess, or whatever they call it. I'd only work 2 or 3 times a year. This is at the end of my career. But I was still under a regular contract. So, under a regular contract, you have to have 4 mandatory piss tests and 2 blood tests every year. Well, they'd get to the end of the year, like it'd be December right going into Christmas, and I'd get a call. You need to go to this such and such lab and do a piss test. And I hadn't been in the ring in 6, 7 months. But they would look at their book, oh, we forgot about him. And it's under, you know, you've got to have this piss test done. So then, okay, well, that's only 3. Sure enough, next day I get another phone call, go back to the lab. So I have to go 2 days in a row to get tested to make sure that I had everything. That's how they do it. Maybe they bang all their tests out early in the year, 4 days in a row, and then just 2 steroids. No, they're totally random. They just show up, the drug testing. So it's like you never know when they're going to show up. I was home. That's why I didn't get tested until the very end. So I just don't understand why they would test. I mean, that's like testing The Rock. Like, if he's doing a movie, want to make sure you're not on steroids. It'd be like, what? Well, obviously, we had some dark that come on. Son, hey, I'm just saying, brother. Son, come on. He is the beef king. Come on. Look at the size of that. He used to be a powerlifter. Yeah, yeah. He was 400 pounds at one time, and he's my height. It's possible. It's possible to be that. It's not bodybuilding size, right? Bodybuilding size is impossible. Yeah, that's impossible. No, yeah. If you look at Ronnie Coleman in his prime, not possible. Not possible. But that guy, maybe some Viking DNA in there. I don't know. Giant dude. Maybe. I know what the protocol is right, and I know like if anybody was going to get out of it, it would have been me. And I didn't get out of it. So I'm just saying, do they test vents? I don't know. Yeah, like I don't. Hey, I wish whatever he's on, I wish I was on. Look at that guy. Yeah, he's 85. That's all he does. He's 70. He's 75. Come on. Who the has traps like that when they're 75? Like if you didn't know that was his traps, you would say he's gonna die. He's got a tumor on his back. Whose size is that man? Let me tell you though, that guy, that's what he does. He's an animal. That's his love, is working out. Who the has ever been that big at that age ever? He's phenomenal, man. How old is he? He's 75. He's older than my mom. I'm going to send my mom a picture of him and go, I don't want to hear anything. Get it together. No excuses, mom. His mom is 99 and was still playing tennis in her 90s. Wow. Jesus Christ. I mean, he's just got some. That's his trainer there. Wow. He's shooting him in the back right now with steroids. He's the one guy we'll call. He'll call me out of the clear blue. Hey, you work out today? Wow. I'm like, no, boss, I didn't. What's wrong? I don't feel like it. He's like, well, you need to get your ass in the gym. It's amazing, his enthusiasm after all these years in the game. It really is. Pretty incredible. You know, he is a workhorse. His company and working out crazy. That's his love, man. Well, that's his passion. That's what causes success. I mean, it really is. Consistency. But look at him there. He looks like he's about 30. Look at him on the right. He's 150 years old and still jacked. It's crazy. I love it. I love people. I wish I do too. I wish I had a little bit of it right now. Well, he's been lifting weights and occasionally wrestling. You've been wrestling well. What year did you start? I started training in 86. Wow. I had my first match in 87. Dude, I was just out of high school. I mean, we don't need to know everything. Yeah. It's been a long time. But, it was tough for me. Like, I'm not a legacy. I didn't have anybody in the business. Yeah, I didn't know anybody in the business. And like, so usually you need somebody to open that door for you. Right? So when in 86, were you thinking like, I've got to figure out a way how to do this? And you just started. Did you? How did you? Did you start taking like classes? How did you? So I was in college. I was a basketball player, right? And my coach tells me, hey, Mark, there's some European scouts that are interested in you. Maybe after next year, they may want to give you a tryout. European pro basketball. Right. But they all say they want to get you. They'd like for you to be a little bigger because the style they played back then. Okay. So I start lifting weights, trying to. I'm 6'8", 230-240, which in the 80s is huge for a basketball player, but still. So I started training. European League, were they just more physical? Yeah. That, it was like Rick Mahorn and Bill Laimbeer. On the gas, and they were just monsters. And so I start training, and I'm trying to put on size and strength. And I met this guy in the gym who was like, every day I'd come in, he goes, hey, man, I'm going to go and I'm going to get into this wrestling. What? You do wrestling with? And I was a big wrestling fan as a kid, but as I got into basketball and football and everything else, I kind of drifted away. Yeah. And I was just like, man, I think I'm gonna go try to play some pro ball in Europe. And he goes, man, you should really try and do this with me. You know? So I kind of started getting in touch with the product again. I kind of started watching again. And I got no clue. I think, kind of fall back into it again. Right? Like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's different. And I think one of the things that's helped me through my career is being a realist in what my talents are. And I was like, kind of start having these conversations with myself. Even if you make a team, I mean, how long do you really have? Right? And being 21 and sitting on the end of the bench in Lithuania just really wasn't that appealing. I'm trying to weigh it up against what I'm seeing on TV. And I'm like, because you got the Von Erichs and you got Hogan. I'm like, well, these guys are huge household names. So I'm thinking maybe I'll give it a try. So we find this guy by the name of Buzz Sawyer to train us. Now I got to come up with 2 grand and I ain't got a pot or a window to throw it out of. So I get my brother, my oldest brother, to co-sign a loan. hawk everything I own, and come up with 2 grand to pay Buzz Sawyer to train me to wrestle. Show up to his house first morning of training. And Buzz was a good amateur, really good amateur. Show up at his house, knocking on the door. There's about 10 of us standing out in the front yard, knocking on the door. Finally, the door swings open. What do you want? He's standing there butt ass naked, just woke him up out of a dead sleep. He's just standing there naked. And everybody's like, oh, we're here to train. And he goes, oh, is that today? Yeah. So he gets another guy that was staying there with him. His name was Perry Jackson, who I'm friends with to this day. He says, go out there and warm them up. So he goes out there, and we run and do everything they can do to blow us up and run us off. Totally gassed out about 2 hours, just nothing but cardio. Finally, Buzz comes out. All right, everybody line up. All right, everybody get down, amateur position. So everybody gets down. He just stretches the out of everybody. Like, cross-faced chicken wing, just hooking everybody and rolling him around in his front yard. That was it. Then he goes in the house. Y'all come back in a couple other days. So this goes on for weeks, and like every time I show up, there's like one less guy that shows up. They just like until I was the last one there. So I'm the last one there. Knock on the door. He never answers. So I start peering in the windows. All the furniture's gone. Everything's gone. He's gone. He's going to a different territory to work. He left. Never learned any pro wrestling. He was just teaching you wrestling. He was just teaching me, yeah. Obviously, we signed up for pro wrestling to teach us how to pro wrestle. But he just came out there, and his whole goal, and this is the way it was back then, is they always try to take your money, and then they try to run you off. Most of the guys in that era were all shooters. They were all good amateurs. And that was what they would do. They would take your money, then they'd hurt you, twist you, try and get you to quit. And they got your money, and they didn't have to worry about. There's some wrestling trainers that were famous for like crazy physical training standards before they ever taught you anything. Like Karl Gotch. Oh, yeah, sure. Karl Gotch, who is not just a wrestler, but one of the legends of catch wrestling. Catch wrestling is a lot like submission wrestling that you see in the UFC or in Jiu-Jitsu, but it's very wrestling oriented. So instead of, whereas Jiu-Jitsu maybe would be, I don't want to say it's less technical, but it's more violent. Like, it's a lot of snapping people down and cross-facing in guillotines and 10-finger guillotines. And there's still a lot of like, Sakuraba was like one of the legends of MMA learned from another catch wrestler in Japan. And a lot of guys like Josh Barnett is another one who's a big catch wrestling enthusiast. His style is all, and he submitted a lot of really elite guys. But yeah, Karl Gotch was famous for making you had to be able to do crazy. Like, I think you had to do 1,000 bodyweight squats. You had to be able to do all these things before he even taught you anything. You had to be tip top before you would ever get into those ropes. Yeah, absolutely. And that was the whole goal, is to run you off. Weed out the weak. Yeah. And then if you went through all of that and you were still there, okay, well, this kid, let's see what we can teach him. But there was that big weed out process. And that was, I think Buzz's whole deal was a scam from the start. Yeah, I mean, he wanted the money. And he knew, back then we had territories before Vince kind of took it nationwide. Texas had a territory, California had a couple of territories, Oregon. And guys just went. 2,000 bucks in 86, a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a kid in college on a scholarship. Yeah, I didn't have. I sold everything I owned. So how do you go from there? So, I lived in my car for a little bit. Bounced in bars, collected a little money here and there. I just did whatever I could just to keep eating and keep training. And I knew the Von Erichs ran Dallas. That was their hub, world-class championship wrestling. And I knew that they were in the office on Wednesday. Like, they would come in there and book the cards, and the guys would come in, get their paychecks on Wednesday. So every Wednesday for about 8 months, I would go down there and I'd sit in the lobby. And guys would walk right by me, not even acknowledge my presence. Every Wednesday for 8 months, I went and just sat there. For 8 months, did you ask to speak to? Well, yeah. So there was a referee back there, his name was Branko Lubitsch, who's the only one that would speak to me. And it would be kind of like, you're here again. Hup, kid? I was like, yes, sir, Mr. Lubitsch. I was hoping maybe I get a chance to talk to somebody today. All right, well, just good luck. And then I would sit there, and I'd walk by and try. As somebody would come through, I'd kind of start to stand up. Never stop. Just blew right by me. One day, I was right at the end of my rope. Like, this is not getting me anywhere. And Fritz von Erich, the patriarch of the family, the guy that owned the company, came in. And he walked in, and he stopped, and he looked at me. And I started once again. I started to get up and introduce myself. And he turned around and he went into Bronco's office. And he had a deep, gravelly voice, and I could hear him.